whip back to the Chief Executive's report, mindful of the fact that Mary is sitting in the chair replacing Carleen today. I would say be gentle with her, but just ask her really hard questions if you feel like it. So over to you, Mary. I'll let you introduce the report.
Thank you. Tēnā koutou katoa, ka nui te kō me te hara, kua hui mai tēnā rā, tautoko au ki te mihi ki te wiki nei. Kia ora koutou, and just wanted to support the Mayor's mihi re the week of Te Reo Māori. Just some key things, I'll take the report as read, but some key things I want to highlight is the recent awards that Council receives. So the Public Information Comms team, there is an award around emergency management communications, customer services, the 3 finalists in the local government customer service award, and the award by a transport team in the public engineering, Institute of Public Engineering. Also want to highlight the work that's being done across my council, which is really looking at that digital transformation of the way council does services. So that work is really trying to look at, for those quick transactions for people, they can be done online, quickly and very cheaply, and that also then hand in hand with that is saying that we also have people doing quality engagement in the community. So it's not an either or, it's about doing those things in tandem. And also the work that's being done across our cities program, which is really looking at the future, the digital future in the community with the services we deliver. You'll note that there's no financials in this report, and our first set of financials won't actually be ready till September. And then the rest of the report, I think, just highlights some of the progress that's being made, particularly across that capital and asset work, a lot of which has actually been reported through to committees and through to council already, but it's just highlighting some of those. So I don't know if anyone's got any questions.
Okay, Vicky, Yanni.
Just one, and it doesn't need to be answered now, but could we get a definite date for when the uplighting of the Botanic Gardens will actually be in place? I know that the parks have got so much on, and I appreciate that there are some issues, so I'm fine with whenever it is, but could we just have some certainty about
Yep. So we were just discussing that yesterday, actually.
Great.
So we will be able to come back with a definite
Awesome.
date.
Thanks, Mary.
Yanni.
Given that the community boards have expressed a lot of concern over the flooding and the land drainage, are you able just to give a kind of a very broad overview around what the next steps are in terms of coming up with some decisions?
Right, so I might hand that over to Dave, because that's part of your team. Are you able to give the next steps around the land drainage work? I know there's a public meeting at the end of October, work going on with the plan.
17th, 18th of October. Yeah.
We've just done a recent report to the Land Drainage Working Party about the progress that's going through around both, well, principally around that middle Heathcote area, and looking at those options, which is what we are going to take out to the public. I'm not sure exactly what Yanni wants in the way of progress on projects on.
I'll just add to that, though, we had not just the working group, but there was a combined community board, ITI, land drainage working group meeting all together in this chamber, and we went through quite clearly what the options are, and that meeting was about giving the land drainage team a steer on what those community boards thought would be the best way forward and the options presented. And I think that from there we got a timeline. We know that those options are going to be worked up and strengthened and brought to ITI, and there will be a public meeting in October to engage with the community. We have to actually reinforce how complex the Heathcote is. It's a linear problem. It's not like Flockton, where you could create floodplains and widen rivers. It's incredibly complex, and so work is being progressed, and I think we can't rush this, but it is happening, Yanni, and you were there.
So at that meeting, I asked for a really clear time frame of when decisions would be made, and I haven't had that. But I think the key thing is that there are community meetings organised in October, and I mean, I've been told that I shouldn't talk publicly about what the options are. We've heard people talk about some of the options this morning, so I just think if we can put something that tells people when the decisions will be made about what's happening, because people are incredibly stressed out. We've just heard from the community boards, and I'm happy to talk about what we discussed in that PX workshop if you want, but I don't feel that that's my place. I think
it's not.
Management
and
should
it's
be doing
really
that.
helpful, that contribution. Thank you very much for it, because what it does is it enables me, because I wasn't at that meeting, it enables me to address an issue that was raised before, and I did. There are several options for addressing all of the flooding issues that we're confronted with. If it was one set of problems that we were confronted with, it would be very easy. But they're not all the same. Each of the catchments is different. And yes, priorities have been applied because of the level of exposure that has been identified. Flockton was absolutely the number one priority, and nothing has changed in terms of the decisions we've made and what has been implemented in that area that makes me think that we made the wrong decision. I believe we made absolutely the right decision to prioritise Flockton. That did involve some buyouts, but it is also going to mean that we can sell empty sections back into the market, and they will be able to build at the higher floor levels. So they will be in a completely different position than somebody who was living there before and wasn't a rebuild, who wasn't able to lift their floor levels. So the Heathcote has in the past had floor levels lifted with support from the council, but it hasn't been the council paying for the entire process. There was a sharing arrangement. That was many, many years ago, long time before I was in Parliament, I think, let alone on the council. So, all of these issues aren't easy, they are complex, and the Heathcote River is the most complex because there are multiple layers of actions that need to be taken. One action that will make a difference in a low flooding event, will actually not be effective in a high flood event. So, and because it's not that simple, and there is no magic wand, there is no silver bullet, it's really important that we take people with us through it. It is frustrating, it is challenging, it is difficult, but actually as councillors, we all have responsibility to support our communities in these challenging times, and not to create unreasonable demands on timelines and decision making. We have to go out to the community and talk to them in a very open way about what the options are and what that might mean for them personally. It's not just the catchment, it's how individuals' homes are affected, and that is always going to make it very, very difficult. So even though I know that you are motivated by such a powerful desire to support community, sometimes the way it is presented can actually make people feel more vulnerable than they need to feel. We are working really hard to make sure that people in that area are able to get the security that they're looking for. But it isn't going to be one answer. There will be a multiple series of answers down the Heathcote. But we've heard from the community board, we've heard from individual councillors. There isn't a councillor that represents an area that the Heathcote River touches on that hasn't raised this. Every single one of you has raised this issue. There is no question that it's a priority. It is the next priority, and that is what staff are working on. But look, I don't want to, I think it's unfortunate to end up having this debated in this format. We are going to have reports come to council. We will be going out to the community. They will know what we're doing. I can't say that there won't be another flood between now and then. That's the trouble. You can talk about 1 in 50 year and 1 in 100 year and 1 in whatever number of years, but the truth is that we're exposed to the same level of risk every single day.
Can I just add to that too, I'm sorry, but I did mention the complexities, but it's no good staff going out without all the information.
Yeah.
So they're waiting to get everything lined up, and they've taken a steer from that workshop we had, Yanni, and that will be when they'll be prepared to face the community with really good, robust information. And we've got multi-hazards and we've got climate change to throw in there as well.
But
so
I do think that perhaps the message from this is that we do need to get, you know, sort of a newsletter out to people who live in the areas that are vulnerable to flooding, telling them what we have done so far and what is happening next.
As far as I know, that is happening. I've seen a couple of them and they're good.
Yes, and getting a works notice is not the same as getting a... yes, yeah, and they have been designed for that purpose. But anyway, I've got Phil, I've got Tim...
look, I don't want to have a big debate on it, Leanne, but I just want to make some comments because we are all passionate.
I don't want to get a whole lot of discussion around an issue that's not really the subject. There's 2 paragraphs on land drainage planning in this report. I don't want to sidetrack onto this issue. So
I was going to briefly say that we've got the best staff, I think, probably in the country working on this flat out. And they, as Pauline has indicated, and you have too, that there's some modelling work which they are still doing so that in fact we get accuracy around the options.
Yeah. Tim?
Thank you. And it is incredibly hard. I've been out to visit people with staff, and that's really crucial that we're all on the same page. But yeah, there is a frustration out there, and it's not even a frustration, it's a fear. And I think someone pointed out when some families hear the rain, it really does affect their children, etc. So it's so important. I've been explaining to people the work that is done leads forward correctly, because one thing in one part of the health can adversely affect another part. It is an absolute bugger to try and get the whole thing right, but we are moving forward. I think that meeting on the 17th, 18th of October will be absolutely crucial to have those options and the information clear. When we talk about options, we're not talking about what we came out earlier on with a whole heap of options.
Yeah.
These are now the options that council will have to make a decision on to move forward. And Leanne's quite right, it's not one silver bullet, there's going to be a number of things that are interconnected, that it's not going to solve the problem in a sense, it's going to reduce the effects, and that's really what we're talking about, and I think we've got to be very honest and clear about that.
Yeah. Dion?
I had one question actually. Just on the flooding one though, are we looking in when we get the report back the IFV and DOV that people have had? Because obviously there's been a fair bit of money chucked out from EQC on people who have got increased flooding vulnerability.
Yeah, that was also included in the Flockton situation in terms of the buyer, as I understand it.
Yeah, because these people, some of them have had considerable sums of money from EQC for the increased flooding vulnerability, and I just don't want us... I
got $500 for me, so...
Well, some,
sorry,
$5
once the... $5 once the...
I'm just thinking it's not fair on ratepayers throughout the city.
Dion, it's taken into account.
Good.
We do not pay people for what they've already received.
No. Just also reinforce that this matter wasn't actually covered in the report. So this matter is being debates outside the content of this report. If you want to discuss this, we could get the right people to discuss it with you or get a memo to you. But
I don't think it's for now.
Yeah.
So
but it was on top of my head, and otherwise I just wanted to get it out there.
Really
but the main thing that I was asking or wanted to ask was, and that whole debate has lost my... the building consents. The new... Where was it? There's something new's happened, and it doesn't actually say the new regulation. That was what it was, new regulation, and we've had to have MB here or something. What was the new regulation?
It's
on page 71.
It's a new mechanism for measuring the... we got a briefing on it a few weeks ago on the new measures for Building Consent Authority accreditation.
Yes, and how did it go?
David, can you...
Yeah, there was also a couple of new things that come through from the Building Act, being able to build closer to a boundary, and the other one was something to do with intrusion onto site plans.
So those two things came in, and which required council to review its fee ability to recover fees for those two things. That was the principal one that I'm aware of.
Yeah, but there was a change.
But we have had an IANZ visit as well.
It says recent changes to regulations meant that staff from MB were also here as observers, and that's because the measures have changed.
Oh, the 19, yeah. So when you looked at an IANZ inspection in the last time they visited, they may have issued what was known then as corrective actions required, and they called them a CAR. So you may have had 3 or 4, maybe 5 CARs issued. Now, in this time round, we have had 19 general areas of non-compliance, and they are sort of, some of them are quite, they're paper trail stuff, but previously we might have had 5 cars, and each car underneath them may have had 5, 6, 7 or 8 things to address. But under the new style of an IANZ inspection, there's no corrective actions. They are all individually listed. So of the 19, 9 of them relate to one small particular area where it's just the way we document things. And there was just suggestions that we should put hyperlinks in, for example, to go from a reference from one area to another. So of those 19, 9 of them were related to issues such as putting a hyperlink in to be able to quickly cross-reference across a number of bits of paperwork. So whilst 19 seems high, it is in fact, if we looked last time round and split out our cars, we probably had somewhere 35 to 40 different things to deal with. So I think it's fair to say that when the IANZ team came in, as the initial part of their report said how pleased they were with the visit, the cooperation of staff, and the level of the high level to which this council has developed its building consenting process, and really what they have found is relatively minor. We are held up as one of the, well, probably the leading building inspection team in the country now, which is a huge turnaround from 4 or 5 years ago when we lost accreditation. So we've gone from 0 to hero, but they will still find a few little bits and pieces that need to be addressed, and I'm quite very comfortable to hear that most of them are of that sort of put a hyperlink in to be able to cross-reference things.
Yeah, so that was a very good question, thank you. Andrew.
Thank you. Referring to page 8 of this report, or page 75 of our agenda, the paragraph relating to the Crown completing its first annual review of the Greater Christchurch Regeneration Act, obviously that work is now completed. No changes recommended, but then there's the comment at the end of that paragraph about the restriction on council making any changes to its district plan. This can apparently occur once the final appeal against the district plan is settled. What would be the process for that? Has there been any commentary on that, or is there any thought within this organisation on how we would go about making that occur?
So I'm sorry, I'm not aware of that. Can I get back? I'll send a memo back.
Okay. So, and the Chief Executive could have answered it too. So what we've been talking to central government about is changing the legislation, because the legislation gives effect to the length of time for the order in council to apply. Everyone has agreed that it was only really ever intended to cover the period for which the replacement district plan process was in place. So once the replacement district plan process is at an end, then we have reassurance, because this was done across the parties, that the legislation will be amended to allow, again, Christchurch to have the ability to change its district plan through normal RMA processes or through the Regeneration Act, which, I mean, we still have the power to change it through the Greater Christchurch Regeneration Act, But that is a different process from the RMA process, and in some instances, we'd prefer to use the RMA process. Yep. Another good question.
So just for clarification, does that mean it won't necessarily take the previous 5 years? It could be done in a shorter time?
Yes, the way the legislation's drafted, it's till 2021, I think. June 2021 before we can basically amend our own district plan through an RMA process. We can only use the Regeneration Act process. I don't believe that was ever the intention. The intention was to tie it in with the conclusion of the replacement district plan, and the replacement district plan will be in place once the final appeal is exhausted.
Thanks, Ian. It's to affecting a number of communities, this issue.
Yes, yeah. But remember that the Greater Christchurch Regeneration Act is there also, so that is another mechanism for changing the district plan. David?
I'd just like to reinforce a little comment that came, or subject that came up in the regulatory performance meeting earlier in the week, where a suggestion was made, this is probably a suggestion to carry forward with Carleen, when advice is given of a standing committee meeting, and we're all on a number of different committees, and we don't often, have time to go to them all, but if there's an item of interest, yes, we would. So just a suggestion that came out of our meeting was that when advice of a meeting is put out, say it's the ITI committee, that just the agenda items are published with that notice that the whole agenda is available on Bigton Can.
Yeah.
So that we can just see the items that are.
That's a very good idea.
And so that we can then make a quick decision without having to download the whole agenda to see what it's all about, and make a quick decision. Oh, yeah, item 5, I really would probably like to go along to that meeting and just check that out. So we thought that would be a good initiative to add to just notification of meetings.
I don't even think that can wait for the chief executive, or has to wait for the chief executive. That can be actioned.
Yep, we can action it.
Yep. Are there any other questions, comments around the chief executive's report?
Comments is okay.
I'll let you comment.
No comments.
No, go on.
Okay. Yes. Because this report, my personal view, I have a feeling, regarding the management, the Carleen, the CE, done a great job. Because if you review this information, page 1, City Council, we received the Emergency Management Public Affairs, EMPA New Zealand Awards. Second is also all the customer service, the team, are the 1 of 3 finalists for the years, the Ultimate Local Government Customer Service Center Award. Third one is I don't think so. Every council, maybe in the nationwide, 76 or 78, we are 24 hours the service through our phone calls, through our email, through our social media, etc. And also in here we try to to give the public community as possible, they can access another confidential information. We tried for the house sales. This kind of looks like, before I didn't say this one, it's like we have generally, become kind of try to, to how do I say, to decorate or make up all the council as a new appearance, new image. This fantastic before probably 9 years, so it's very good. So we should, as a government, should recognize the Carleen's greater leadership. This is my view. This is quite good.
On that note, would you like to move that the report be?
Yeah, it's possible. I don't know. I would like to.
You can move.
It's fantastic.
Right. Do I have a seconder? Anne? I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried.